Yeah, so thanks for having me here today. Yeah, if I'm a bit nasally and I have to stop for a coughing fit, I apologise. So I'm actually glad that I'm able to be here. So I grew up in Christchurch, and as he said, I studied at Canterbury University as well. So it was great to be able to present here in my hometown. So this is me. I work for FaceMe as the head of product, leading product strategy and development. And so what I'll be talking about is, what are digital humans? How do they play a part in our, how will they play a part in our lives? What is the work that we're doing? What is a digital human? What are the considerations around building a digital human? How are they used? All that sort of thing. And a lot of the time I talk about the future of work as well, and it's kind of interesting. My profile there doesn't tell you that I was a commercial real estate agent for about 4 years, during which time I had a hair salon. And then I ended up doing sales for a digital marketing startup. Then I started my own customer loyalty company, and I also have a gardening and landscaping business now. So it's to go from that to be the head of product at an AI startup that is really disrupting in our space is pretty cool to be able to do that sort of thing. So to talk a little bit about FaceMe. FaceMe is a team of about 25 people. Predominantly our team are in Auckland and Hamilton. We have team members in Australia as well. We founded our company back in 2009, and at that point we were a video conferencing company. So we were competing with the likes of, well, actually we weren't competing with many people back then because video conferencing wasn't much of a thing back then, but towards the end of 2016, we were competing with the likes of Zoom and Skype for business and all that sort of thing. So we're very much in the enterprise video conferencing space. But in late 2016, early 2017, we'd been working on this project called the Nadia project in Australia. Some of you may have heard of it. The National Disability Insurance Agency had created a digital human to serve their members. And around that sort of 2016, 2017 period, we realized the future was in digital humans. So we did a complete switch over pivot. And so here we are working on digital humans sort of a year and a half later. Obviously, it's sort of worked out for us. The top right-hand picture, you can see that we were in the Deloitte Fast 50, which is great. So we've gone from strength to strength. The other thing I like to call out about our company is that we value people and we value family. That's the number one thing that our team rates when they talk about why they enjoy working at FaceMe. And I think that's an important fundamental value when it comes to working with digital humans and AI, which is obviously going to have a massive impact on society. So what are digital humans? So digital humans, it's really simple actually. It's a digital version of a person. So if you think about video games and movies, they've been dealing in digital humans for a very long time now. And they've become more and more of a thing. And the terminology digital human has become more of a thing rather than a character, because the graphics and the processing power that we have available to us now at that much of a high level that we are able to achieve photorealistic quality. But unlike the video game and movie industry, we're bringing other technologies into the foray, such as computer vision, audio analytics, behavior systems, and things like that, that really start to simulate what a human can actually do in the real life, but in a digital world. So how is a digital human created? There's kind of two main ways that we create our digital humans. The first way that we do it, which I haven't shown here, is we generate from scratch. So a client of ours may give us a couple of photos as kind of a reference for their brand. We will do some concept illustrations like you would expect from storyboarding or like in the movie industry. And then we would synthesize and create a digital head from scratch. But this method here, what we're doing is, this is Daniel Colt, who is the Chief Investment Officer for Switzerland for UBS Bank, the world's largest private bank. And his face would have been cleaned down. Marks have been added to his face using a makeup pen, and that allows us to track his facial movements during the scanning process. And then he's put inside what is called a photogrammetry light stage. And this is something you can Google. There are pictures of it. I couldn't show the one that we used because it was all very confidential. if you think about, if you can picture in your mind a sphere that is made up of black steel lattice work, and then there's about 120, over 120 digital SLR cameras with lots of LED lights, extremely bright within it. And the cameras and the lights are fired in such a sequence so that you can capture all these details of the face, from the micropore details to the shininess of the skin to the colors, the blood flow maps, captures an incredible detail. And then from that, we have a high resolution mesh, and this low resolution mesh is created off that high resolution mesh. So if you imagine kind of like vacuum forming a lower resolution wrap over this high resolution sort of scan, we come up with a mesh which we call game ready in the game industry. So it is a mesh that is able to be rendered in real time, which is what we need for our application. And then when you bring it together with the textures that we've captured from the photogrammetry process, and we add our artists to it, adding their magic, it really is quite magical. I don't know how they do it, because you can imagine trying to reproduce a human likeness takes a lot of craftsmanship and a lot of attention to detail. And when he can achieve this sort of level of realism, and this is not like in the movies where they spend hours rendering a single frame. This is actually running in real time at 60 frames per second. So this is an incredible level of detail that is now only possible through the compute power that we have available. So once you've got the digital human, it's all well and good that you've got this ultra realistic digital human. So how do we interact with it, which is kind of the most interesting thing for us. There's kind of three main parts to the solution. On the left-hand side there, you've got the interface through which you interact with the digital human. None of this is actually particularly complicated. You can have a kiosk like we had at the Auckland airport. So essentially, like you would expect a kiosk, it's a screen, sort of big monolith sort of type of thing. You walk up, Vi, who was there, would say hello to you, and you would just ask questions about, can I bring this apple in, or where are the toilets, what is the biosecurity process, that sort of thing. And you would just interact conversationally. The other two main interfaces are, they're both web browser based, so your desktop web browser or your mobile web browser. So the way you should kind of imagine this experience working is it might be embedded into your mobile banking app. So as you're interacting, as you're working through your mobile banking, you might have some questions around your accounts, or you might want to see if you'd extend your overdraft. You would be able to open up a conversation with the digital human. So as you have the interaction, the two main things that come through from the interaction is just like a video conversation. There's our video conferencing heritage coming through. So the video and audio passes through our platform, and we process that video and audio. So computer vision allows us to do things like facial biometrics, check, read emotion, understand whether you're looking away or looking at us. Because if you're looking away from the digital human and speaking, we don't actually want to listen to you. So applying situational awareness allows us to give a much more engaging and more realistic sort of interaction. And then when we do speech to text, the text is able to go through to a chatbot platform. So this is how, this is kind of our positioning as a company, that we don't want to do the conversational part of the chatbot. We believe that companies out there are already doing a good job of it. And also the customers that we have are actually the domain experts of the conversations that they should be having, right? Like they should have dedicated teams iterating on these conversations, making these chatbots better. So the text goes to the chatbot, including any metadata we may provide to them that we can actually glean from video and audio analysis, such as biometrics, right? Like, yes, we've authenticated and recognized this person, so now you can have a conversation that's more personalized. And then the chatbot platform gives us a response, and we synthesize the voice, add emotion, add expression, and then we render it out either by video if it's web browser based, or we will render it locally on the machine if it's a kiosk based. And then that's kind of the loop of the interaction. So there's a question of like digital humans and like why. So when I first looked at digital humans, it was kind of like, ugh, this seems a bit gimmicky, but there's kind of you got to understand what's going on in the marketplace and customer experience to go, why is there a drive to adopt digital humans? Why are people even willing to experiment with this? And you got to look at the customer experience we have today. It's easy, fast, and personal. If we just think about the technology that we have today, right? Uber, you push a button, car turns up, hop in the car, hop out, it's all paid for. You don't even have to talk to the driver. Like, it's kind of a crazy experience when you think about it like that, but that's kind of what we expect from a lot of the experiences we have today. We want things to be fast. Amazon Prime pioneered it, same day sort of shipping. Now Mighty Ape has it, and I'm sure there's a number of other New Zealand companies as well that provide it now. But same day shipping, and if it's over a day, there's something wrong. Where's my package gone? I once ordered a set of headphones actually not too long ago, and it took like 5-6 days. I was like, heck, did you lose it? Shame on you, Dick Smith. And then we want things to be personal as well. So if you think about like Netflix and Spotify and Google, like the experiences that you have with those apps would just not be the same if they're not personalized. And so we're expecting these experiences to be easy, fast, and personal. So the bar has gone from here to here in a rapid amount of time. And there's more and more startups just pioneering and challenging the status quo. So you've got these telcos and banks going, heck, what do we do? So at the board level, they're like, customer experience, we need to nail it because there's not much else we can compete on because our services are getting commoditized. And then AI, because AI, we need to be involved with the AI conversation. So this hotbed of activity is creating a lot of room for innovation and trying new things, which is really great. Certainly great for us. And this hotbed of innovation has kind of created some really great stuff. And I want to show one of the experiences that we helped create with UBS using our platform. And UBS, as I said, is the largest private bank in the world, private wealth bank, and very risk averse. Swiss bank, very risk averse, very sort of traditional bank. The security process, and even though we weren't dealing with personal data, was incredibly difficult. It was kind of nuts compared to the other customers other banks would work with. But we're particularly proud of what we were able to achieve here. So I'll just play a quick video.
Hi, my name is Finn. I can help you handle your banking. I am always at your service. On the economic situation, I can today offer an analysis of market risks. This is the change in exchange rates against the Swiss franc since the beginning of this year.
Hello, my name is Daniel Kalt, Regional Chief Investment Officer of UBS in Switzerland. I will help you navigate financial markets. What would you like to know?
I think there's a real richness to the experience you can add to it. So there's the digital human part of it. They also create a little Mentos fellow. She does a whole bunch of other things as well. But then there's kind of the UI, right? Like there's kind of the visualizations and things like that. And I'll talk a little bit more about that use case a bit. So particularly proud of that one. And it's really great to see that businesses are really taking on this sort of digital human technology and where it's heading. We've got a couple of other projects that I can talk about as well. ASB, MPI, as I talked about, the Auckland International Airport. And there are just, we've got, I don't know, it's just kind of hard to say. Like, there's so many companies that are talking to us now about creating these sorts of experiences, and more we're thinking about experiences that are not just sort of gimmicky digital human experiences. They're not just, hey, how can we put a digital human on top of our chatbot which just answers frequently asked questions? Because in a way, that doesn't add a lot of value, but it's really great to see that businesses are really thinking about, we have a very complex business. We have a lot of complex products. So how can we use digital humans as an interface to help people navigate and interact with the different things that we offer? And one of the questions that always comes up is, do people like it? Uncanny valley comes up a lot. And like I said at the beginning, like I said earlier, I'm like, when I first saw digital humans, I was like, gaming stuff, yep, video, movies, yep. But digital humans for enterprise, I'm not so sure about. And my tune has changed completely. User acceptance testing, end user customer workshops, and the results of our pilots have really shown that people really love it. They really love the interactions. And probably the best example of it is actually from the UBS project. So once again, you think about UBS, they've got a bunch of conservative bankers. So these the main user of our digital human in that case was the client advisors. So client advisors that advise high net worth individuals on their investments. And that's what they did. So two people sitting across the table that have Daniel Colt on the screen, and they could ask for advice. When they were interviewed at the beginning on whether they thought AI, whether they would work with AI assistants, is that a good idea? They're like, no, dumb idea. They've had experiences before when they've prototyped and experimented with other experiences, and they're just really difficult to use, not very helpful at all. And they said, AI digital assistants, no. And it wasn't until they actually used it that they realized it would help them do their job so much that they just turned 180 degrees. Fin helps them order a credit card without filling in any forms. They can do it with their client right then and there. The process is done in that meeting room. The client gets a great experience. The client advisor gets a great experience as well. You've got access to the chief investment officer in the room giving advice, which you can then riff on and talk with your client about. Like, these are things that weren't possible to them before, and you're not going to do that with a chatbot, right? You can't imagine just wait 1 second, let me just get my keyboard and I'll ask the chatbot for some advice and then talk to your client. So this kind of experience that was offered to the clients was just absolute boon to the client advisors, and so it's really shifted the perception. So all this talk of digital humans, we need to think about the ethical and social considerations as well of what we do. It's pretty obvious that AI is going to have an impact on the workforce, and we need to have conversations around, how is this going to be addressed? And for us, we take we believe we have a big responsibility in that. So whilst we try and avoid any sort of customers where they're outright trying to replace people, like they're trying to shut down a contact center or replace it, that can be a challenge in its own right. I'm glad that we haven't had any customers that are like that, but it's not exactly going to be clear. If there was ever a recession and people just had to make staff redundant, then they may be looking at look at digital humans, for example, to fill that gap. So then at that point, is it ethical to actually take on that customer or not? Because they were going to do it anyway. There's other things as well. When you think about digital humans, when we start to get better and better at reading emotions and human behavior, and then we can then simulate digital human behavior to best match your preferences and things like that. So it could be as simple as your communication style or your body language and things like that. Conceivably, we could create the ultimate salesperson, and if the ultimate salesperson was used in the wrong way, what sort of things could you sell to the wrong people? So the way we try and deal with this at our company, and we don't have answers to this, is we start by talking about it in our leadership team meetings. We start talking about what are our values, what are our ethics. One, for example, is we don't deal with companies that are in the gambling industry. because it's just not good business. It's just not a good idea. And these sort of values and ethics, they're defined by the hard decisions that we have to make. Like when we have to really turn down a lucrative opportunity and it really hurts us. I think that really establishes our values and ethics as a company. We also participate, and we're not the only ones that can answer it. So working together with the likes of Partnership on AI Forum New Zealand, where there are lots of people that are talking about ethics and have been talking about ethics for a long time, have expertise in this. How do we work with these organizations? And I actively participate in them and participate in the conversation, help shape the conversations around, how do we bring openness and transparency when it comes to, openness and transparency when it comes to things like developing behavioral systems that allow us to simulate, the world's best salesperson. So I think it's important that as individuals and as people in the AI industry that we participate in these and actively get involved rather than just kind of step back and just hope that someone else will solve it. The future, I'll just close on the future of digital humans and where we think we're going to be heading. So we believe that the future of digital humans will be working alongside people. In fact, that's one of our philosophies, is that we want our digital humans to work alongside people. And this is, as I said with the Daniel Colt example, this is one of the best examples. If you think about games like Halo, the Halo franchise, if you look at the AI in the Halo franchises and how they're portrayed, they are able to access a vast amount of data, deal with many complex systems, run a spaceship, and they can handle all these very complex calculations and do all these things really, really quickly. But you've still got a captain, and the captain makes the decisions. The captain is forced to make these decisions between, like really difficult decisions, but the AI is working alongside and informing them. And I think this is kind of where the future will be, where you've got someone like Daniel Colt that is digitized, where his expertise is made available to advisors all over the world. But Daniel also has access to vast amounts of data. Daniel also has a vast knowledge of that client's information, so that the experience, the client advisor is able to draw on the expertise of Daniel to give this better advice and create a better relationship with the client and create a better overall experience. So I think this is where we're going to head. I think we're going to see more digital humans in our experiences in the next 1 to 2 years. Already a lot of our customers are talking about heading into production and how we can actually turn them into mainstream, into their main experiences. And probably in the next 3 to 5 years, we'll start to see more companies that actually build the experiences off the back of a digital human. And we are talking about some in mental health, for example, where the whole experience would be built on a digital human. So it's an exciting time, still a very new space, but I think it'll emerge very quickly. So thank you.
I can't come near you because we'll get feedback. So get out of that. Alrighty, yeah, thanks, mate, and thank you so much for making the effort. Feeling so unwell. Got a lot of questions. It must have been a popular session. How strong is the uncanny valley reaction in people with a digital human, especially compared with their reaction for the same conversation via text or, say, voice?
Well, uncanny valley doesn't factor when it comes to text and that sort of thing, so it's kind of doesn't really compare. When it comes to uncanny valley for our digital humans, it's funny, some of the digital humans do get more sort of feelings of uncanny valley. So Daniel Colt, I think, probably had more feelings of uncanny valley, perhaps, and there's kind of a couple of factors. The lighting condition that we had him in, he looked a bit more pale, so we've actually done some tweaks to it. And uncanny valley is the feeling of, if you look at a dead person, that's uncanny valley. So if your digital human looks a bit like a dead person, then that's where the uncanny valley comes in. So with somebody like Alyssa here, the uncanny valley is not as strong because you've got more warmth and color in her face, but also the movements of her face help with that. And we've found that some of our characters that are generated were therefore not as realistic. So Alyssa was actually scanned as well. Some of the other ones that are generated, they actually don't get any sense of uncanny valley at all. If you go to our website, you'll see Brittany, Freckles, Sophie, she's got so many different names. On our website, there's a lady there that is, she doesn't seem to have any sense of uncanny valley. Nobody talks about uncanny valley with her, and people love her. So yeah, it is something to contend with, but it doesn't seem to affect the actual experience that we've seen.
Cool. What's the story with, say, copyright on a person's face?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's probably not something we've actually been able to solve yet. In a way, we have thought about it, but we've not come across it as a problem. Put it that way. So when it comes to models, for example, being used for advertising, I think the model will be very similar, where if you think about a celebrity that is used for a brand and advertising and things like that, royalties are paid back to the likeness of that person. And in fact, some of the projects that we're looking at now actually use celebrities. So I think the precedent of how digital humans will be used and the sort of licensing of their likeness will be established there, but it won't be that different probably from the other industries that have already done it before. And then that's another reason why people like to use generated heads, because they're completely unique.
Cool, thank you. I can relate to this one. Are we concerned a digital human might falsely represent someone, i.e. the digital CFO might say something the real CFO doesn't agree with?
Yeah, I think so if we think about the UBS case, because that is obviously what that's referring to, it's the business has to really take the responsibility of signing that off with the CFO, right? Like, the Chief Investment Officer. If whoever is involved with creating the chatbot and then using the likeness of Daniel Colt, they would need to check with Daniel Colt to make sure that whatever he's saying is actually what he would actually say. And there was a lot of back and forward checking process as well. The IBM team worked with UBS very closely to actually create the dialogue there. So I think there'd need to be some sort of process there, but yeah.
Okay, cool. Are they always based on someone, or do you invent people?
As I mentioned before, they're not always based on people. So it's funny. So the one that's on our website is not based off anyone. It's kind of a little bit randomly generated. It was our first digital human, so we were just like, give us a person. and that's what we ended up with. The thing is, I find it interesting when we talk to our customers about coming up with a digital human, like, who do you want your digital human to look like? It's a bit unfortunate right now that everybody wants to play it safe. So you can kind of probably guess the profile of the digital human. 20 to 35, female, not too pretty, but pretty but not too pretty, kind of a mixture of ethnicities, so you can't really tell. And it's kind of an in-joke that we have that you kind of just go, that's kind of what we're going for. But it's really great to see that UBS, for example, scanned a male. I've got a digital human head as well. We've got some projects that we're looking at as well that are using male role models as well. I think we need, it's just kind of funny, but I think it's mainly because people are playing it safe right now. So they don't have to be based on people, but if they're generated, they tend to be in that profile.
Alrighty. This is the last question. I thought we'd end on a high. How do you deal with hair, i.e. the way it moves naturally, and did you use your past background?
Funny, the hair salon, I spent very little time in the hair salon, and I realized I am not interested in the hair industry at all. So a word of advice, if you're ever getting into business, don't do anything that you're not into. So with the hair side of things, the hair is actually really difficult. It's computationally very expensive. If you look at some of the most realistic digital humans, some of the most computationally intensive stuff is what's called peach fuzz. Peach fuzz is that little fine detail of hair that is across your skin Yeah, it's very computationally expensive, but very minor and adds to the realism a lot. There are so many minor details. So with the hair that we do, we tend to stick with short hair or quite rigid hairstyles. Because if you do a longer hairstyle, it needs to move, otherwise it looks weird. We have simulated hair movement, and it looks cool, but it's very computationally expensive, which means that you just can't. When we're rendering these in GPU farms in the cloud, it gets extremely expensive to run many concurrent digital humans.
Well, thank you so much.